Okay, so today we're going to be making banana berry bread. You can also make banana berry muffins, which is what I usually make, but today I'm going to make it as a bread. So I have a cup and a half of flour. Here you can see I don't measure, so that's about a cup and a half. This is about a half a cup of brown sugar. You might want to use measuring cups. I don't. This is a half a cup of melted butter, so you can see about how full that is in case you don't want to measure either. That looks about right. And then we have 2 eggs. Ta-da! And it also calls for vanilla salt and baking soda. So, first little tip I want to show you is bananas. Now, if you're waiting a week and a half for your bananas to get overripe, this is a shortcut method. Put them in the freezer, you take them out, they're just like ripe bananas. So I'm going to start with that, and then my secret ingredient is blueberries and raspberries. And along with the banana berry muffins, we're going to make berry butter. So stay with me and I'll be right back. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to mix together the butter, the brown sugar, the eggs, and the vanilla, and the bananas here. So there's the butter, brown sugar, so mix butter and brown sugar together first. I'm just going to mix it in this pan here. Okay, so now you can kind of see what it looks like after it's mixed. It's pretty saucy. Not that kind of saucy. Okay, then we're going to do the eggs. Oops. So 2 large eggs is what you want to use. Now this is a little different from banana bread, but it's not cake, it's banana bread. But we're going to make it in a cake pan so that it doesn't take over an hour to cook, like with a real deep pan. So we're just going to use a larger pan, and then that way it's going to be spread out a little bit more. It cooks up in about a half hour instead of, like most recipes say, an hour and 10 minutes. Maybe a little more. This is going to take about a half hour. And I really like this recipe. I used to make huge batches, make like a quintuple size batch. And this recipe would have been much faster. If you make a batch that size, you're going to want to use about 15 bananas. Anyway, so there's that, and then we're going to put in the, whoops, I forgot what I'm doing here. What am I putting in next? Vanilla and banana, so just put about a spoon and a half. Again, I'm not going to measure. It looks pretty good. If it's too much, well, it'll just taste even better. So there's that. Okay, so let's put the bananas here. And we're going to mix this all together. And I'll be right back. Okay, so just about done smashing the bananas here. If you do put your bananas in the freezer to ripen them quickly, make sure you thaw them before you try to smash them. Okay, so the next thing here is we have the dry ingredients, which is the baking soda quarter teaspoon of salt. Whoops, how much was the baking soda? Sorry, I don't measure. It says a teaspoon. So here's that, and the 1.5 cups of flour already mixed together. So I'm going to mix that in. Okay, so this is the batter, and you can see that it's quite thick. It's not quite like dough, but it's certainly not like a cake mix consistency. So now that we have that all blended, I'm going to add my berries, and I'll be back. Okay, so I've added some of the blueberries, and you can just kind of see there how many. You just kind of throw them in. Now you might use more if you're making like blueberry muffins, but keep in mind that this also has bananas, and I'm going to put some raspberries here. So it's going to be very fruity. Reserve some of the raspberries because we're also going to be making berry butter to put on our banana berry muffins. So I'm going to call that good on the raspberries. Again, it might not look like much, but there's going to be plenty enough fruit in here. So while I've been doing this, I'm preheating the oven to 350. And I have waiting for me a greased cake pan. Okay, so you can just kind of see it's just loaded with fruit. So I'm going to just pour it in my pan here and pop it in the oven, and we'll be back to make the butter. Okay, so now we're going to work on the berry butter, and I have here heavy whipping cream. That's used to make homemade butter. Now I would advise that you put just a pinch of salt, and even though we're going to be making sweet butter, the salt will kind of bring out the sweetness if you just put a little. So, and if you can see, just going to put a little, not like that, maybe a little bit more. You don't want salty butter, so that's probably about half a teaspoon-ish of salt. And we're doing this one from scratch, but you don't necessarily need to do it from scratch. But if you just shake up the whipping cream, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes or so, it's going to turn into butter. So I'm just going to do this for a while, and I'll be back. Okay, so while I'm finishing up making my butter, I'm just going to kind of show you a version of this that you would make if you didn't want to make your own butter. So this one, I'll just show you here real quick how you would do this with store-bought butter. So basically, I'm just going to take some butter, and I put in powdered sugar, just a little. Now I do like butter on muffins and such, but for the fancy butter, I just cream in some powdered sugar. And then I just take up the berries, so like my version I put in raspberries and blueberries to kind of keep the theme with the banana berry muffins. I put the same berries in the butter. Now you can also tear up cherries and put them in here and make like a cherry berry butter. They're a lot juicier though, so I find when I use cherries, you want to maybe tear them into a separate bowl first so you can make sure you don't get a lot of liquid into the butter. It doesn't take too many berries for the butter. You can safely use most of the berries that you have in the muffins. So Anyway, so just put the berries right directly in there, and just little teeny tiny chunks, and it's just kind of a fun thing, very festive. You can put it in a decorative dish on the table with a fancy spoon if you're having, you know, guests, or it's a birthday for someone. Okay, so you can see here is the finished banana berry bread. You're welcome. What? You're welcome. What? You're welcome. And it's clearly a hit. Butter is ready now. So I just wanted to show you guys how it turned out. There. Let me get a work here. I'm just going to scoop some out here. And you can see homemade butter. Now there are a few different variations you can do with this. Obviously you could leave it as plain butter. I've also made honey butter, which is pretty self-explanatory. Just put some honey in there. You could make it honey cinnamon or just cinnamon butter. You could experiment with different types of fruits or juices. Just, I mean, if you're going to use juice, you just want to use a little, but maybe you could do some peach butter, like if you're going to have praline. Okay, so here's everything all finished. It's the banana berry bread with berry butter. Now, if you have a favorite banana bread recipe, you can certainly use that one in place of this one, with the few modifications of adding the berries and making the butter. If you choose to use this recipe, I would use a small cake pan, like a 9x9 or a casserole dish. Just to be a little thicker, you want to make sure it's not flat. And with that, breakfast is ready. Thanks for watching. Bye!